Today, we're at a conference which honors love and spirit, mind, body, and spirit. So this is a presentation about relationships, romance, and love, and longevity. Longevity is the healthy part of it. I'm now 73, so my mind is always on longevity, as many of my friends are dying. And as we get older, that becomes a big issue. But when we're younger, I see some young people here dating, wanting to fall in love with the right person, wanting to be most attractive. People who have been divorced before and wondering why to get back together. I think that's part of my reason for giving this talk, is that relationships don't get a good rap today. There's so many, like twice as many people are not getting married. So many single people get together and then they lose the attraction and they just drift off, sometimes as enemies, sometimes as friends. But what I see as a counselor for over 50 years, there's certain patterns that show up. And what I see to be the case is physical intimacy tends to be the glue of a marriage. Physical intimacy. When physical intimacy is not fulfilling to both partners, then little things become big things. And then big things create arguments. And if we don't have good communication skills, then people begin to shut down. We don't want to shut down. We want to keep our hearts open. So anyway, today, this sort of understanding of male-female relationships I wrote about in Men Are From Mars and Women From Venus. And if you're in a more traditional relationship, we'll call that where the man makes more money than the woman. That's the traditional relationship. That's no longer the case. What we're seeing now is many women are making equal or more money than their partner. Like over half relationships, women are making more money. And when women make more money, it completely changes the dynamic. Some people are thinking, well, it shouldn't, and it doesn't have to. Let me think about all my clients I'm seeing now. Several of them I'll give you a scenario where the woman is independently wealthy. Okay, so she has made a lot of money. She's a very successful woman, and she's married to her husband. And I'm going to change the details a little bit in case they're watching. So it's not just about them, but I'm extrapolating several people together. But they're both Harvard graduates, okay? And when you go to those high-end schools, there's a lot of expectations on you to make a lot of money, to give them that permission there. And through your connections and whatever, you have more doors open for you. Matter of fact, if you ever talk to somebody who's been to Harvard, within the first minute, they'll let you know. Okay? But I don't judge that, because for me, within the first 5 minutes, I always let people know I wrote Men Are From Mars. If you're proud of something, why not share it with people? So the dynamic there, I give you like a case study of a few combined stories, which is she basically looks at her husband as not living up to his potential. He makes $700,000 a year. She has $10 million in the bank. So how can she appreciate that $700,000 in a year? See, if she didn't have so much money and your husband made $700,000 a year, you'd be pretty happy about that, right? Who would be happy about that? And if you're the husband, you'd be happy that your wife was happy about that. Okay, this is the dynamic now, and we're looking at that being more of the modern relationship. Now, I grew up in a happy family. As far as I didn't know that relationships had problems when I was growing up. And my dad had a job. He worked 9 to 5, came home, watched TV. That was about it, And if my mother had six boys and one girl. Okay, and my father's role was policeman. My mother, all she had to do was put us in order. Is I'm going to tell your father, and if she told father, and everybody had that experience of going to dad's room, and this is what they did in Texas. Don't think of my father as a bad guy. This is what everybody did. But he pulls off his belt and he spanks you with a belt. Okay, it's a nicer way of saying he whips you. Yeah. Now, I did have a different experience. I was number 5, and that kind of discipline didn't really work in the long run with my brother, not all my brothers. And so my mother finally convinced my dad, let's not do that with Johnny. So they had a policy with me, which is I never got punished. And I kind of think that has a lot to do with my creativity. I've written over 28 books. I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life and fun stuff, out of the box stuff. I'm a real out of the box person. I have a whole, right now, I was kicked out of Harvard and kicked out of Stanford where I was teaching. I wasn't a student there because I'd say that the most radical idea that men and women are different. 50 years where people say we're not. I just go, are you like awake? Can you not see that there's significant differences? But anyway, so they learned another way of parenting. It wasn't always perfect. You learn better and better, but for me, it had a great effect, and without a doubt. And you might think, gee, what a lucky childhood I have. But everything has consequences. And the consequences of that were, if I got into trouble, my mother would say, okay, I'll tell your father. And I go to the father's room and he'd say, now make noises while he whips the chair. Okay. Well, my brothers figured that out real quick. So they decided to be my torturers. So I really believe that we all get tortured in life to a certain extent. It's just, we on a spiritual level, we all share. Some of us are just better at handling torment. Okay, so I was just sharing with somebody else, nothing actually stresses me out ever now in my life, and I've kind of earned that, unless something's going on with the computer. Because, ironically, as a young man, I was a computer programmer, but I know nothing about, the new software and everything like that, nor do I want to know. There's only so much room in this brain. So I kind of focus in my lane. So it's like with wisdom, what we gain is the ability to find a way to not bother us so much. And some of us succeed, some of us don't. And I think it all has to do with the information that we're fed. As a therapist, I don't know how many of you have been in counseling, but a lot of good therapists are actually doing therapy rather than couples counseling. The issue is to realize behind all negative emotions, behind all stress is negative emotions and a mindset that creates those negative emotions. And how to go deep inside to let go of, like, all anger is really can't occur if you don't have fear. When a person's angry, they're really afraid, but they don't have the emotional intelligence to be aware of that. Particularly a man who's really angry, and you say, well, I hear you, but you're also afraid. What are you afraid of? I'm not afraid of anything, because sometimes the anger is just a cover up for the fear. And a lot of women I see more commonly will have anxiety and fear and so forth. But actually, when I dig down inside, that fear is a weakness. Okay, it's a powerlessness, and they're denying and suppressing anger, because anger is really not a safe emotion for women to express. I mean, some women are really good at it and they're alone. So there's consequences to things. But logically speaking, if you get angry, I mean, go back, we have genes that have been trained for thousands of years, and men were not as emotionally intelligent then as they are now. And if you get angry with a man, particularly a man you're having sex with, it's even more potent. And this is why there's so many arguments with couples when they have physical intimacy and sex. Is what happens is we're hearing more in biology and physiology that our brain has mirror cells. Now, as little children, they're completely turned on. We're in a state of theta all the time as children. The first 7 years, you absorb all your parents' neurosis. It's all there. And it's in the genes as well from 7 generations back. There's research all on that. If you torment a little bird, the next generation, don't torment the children, but they'll all be afraid of the man with the brown hat who tormented them, all the way to 7 generations. Wow. So we are carrying around our history. There's no question about it. And then it activates through our first 7 years. And this was all like standard understanding. But now we have the actual biology, the brain function of being in theta state is dream state. So children are all in dream state. My little granddaughter right now, one of them, well, there's 5, but the one that's a year and a half, she's got pictures of fruits on the wall, and grandpa comes, oh, grandpa, She doesn't say it. She says, hi. And then she grabs a piece of fruit off the wall and says, here. It's all pretend. See, this is the fruit on the wall. To her, that's just as real fruit. They're in a dream state. They absorb whatever's around them. So what we absorb is our parents' attitudes about their gender as well. Okay, or maybe not so much people cared about their gender. Women knew they were women. Men knew they were men then. But what I'll be talking about today is our masculine, feminine side. Many women read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and I'm describing to a great extent that traditional relationship where women are making babies and men are out in the world doing dirty, dangerous, difficult things without complaint in order to provide happiness for their wives. And that still is the reality. It's just, in the case of the couple who I've helped dramatically and they want to keep coming to me forever, I say, you can't. You have to have problems to talk to me, but please, okay, emergencies, you can call me up. But what we had to learn in that relationship is that she was holding inside of her quietly judgment and criticism that he wasn't making more money. That was just what was going on. She said, but I don't tell him that. That doesn't matter if you don't tell your partner something. It's what you're feeling inside has the effect on them. And so he come home exhausted and tired, because what wakes a man up is feeling successful. Okay, this is everything in a man's biology is regulated to a great extent by our stress levels. Now, we call stress adrenaline, or we call it cortisol. If it's normal kind of problems, daily problems, it's adrenaline. Like, let's say I was racing here and I was late. I would have adrenaline being produced to drive fast without getting a ticket, right? So that is adrenaline. And that's normal stress, a little bit more than normal stress. But for me, that feels really good. For my wife, it doesn't. This is a big difference between men and women. Men love to do dangerous things, actually makes them feel better. Why would that be? Because when you have adrenaline and you're a man, you completely disconnect from your emotions. And if you're disconnected from your emotions, you can't feel stress. You don't have any negativity at all. All negativity comes from our emotions. I'm afraid, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, I feel guilty, I feel ashamed. Anytime you're stressed, those emotions are there to some extent. So I'm driving in my car. I mean, I'll say it's an act of maturity. It took me a while to get to the level of maturity I'm now, where I don't have to speed. Literally, as in my 40s, I could afford a really fast car. So I had one of the fast cars and I'd be on the highway. I had to go at least 12 miles over the speed limit. Right now, I do have one of my cars as a fast car. I don't drive it that much. But if I drive down to LA and the speed limits are 70 miles an hour, I have to go 90. I just, because the car can do it by just a little extra little something. And I just have to, I don't even like to make that trip now. I just don't want to have to feel I have to go into adrenaline to feel good. It's addictive for men. Adrenaline, good. Now, for some women, it could be as well. And there's some women that say, I like driving fast. And that's personality, more personality rather than biology. But come on in. When a man is stressed, he will have, this is moderate stress. And this is just biology for a few moments here. When a man is moderately stressed, he will shift in his consciousness away from emotions. And I'm calling that going to his male side completely and disconnecting from his female side. And when a woman experiences moderate stress, she has 8 times more blood flow that goes to the emotional part of the brain. Mm-hmm. So her adrenaline produces emotion. For men, adrenaline produces no emotion. So we don't feel anything. Now, certainly, as women, so many women in the room, you know that there's times when you can tell your partner does not feel anything. And that's scary to a woman. Because when a woman doesn't feel anything, it means she's really mad at you. Okay? This is the woman who comes to me after a 20-year marriage, 30-year marriage, and I try to help them, and she says, I have nothing left to give. Nothing. I feel nothing. Okay. Whereas men can go into feeling nothing like that. So it sets off fear inside of a woman anytime a man we'll call it detaches. And ironically, my background in my 20s is I was a celibate monk, cultivating the ability to have no emotion. Cultivating that. That's what meditation, certain meditations are, is cultivating the ability to detach completely. So I can completely detach. It was like Bonnie, my wife of 34 years, she passed. And 2-3 really good years of grieving, which was massively stressful at that time. And coming out of that, now I'm happily married again. People say, you got married so fast? It's easy for me. I know how to win a woman over. It's so easy once you understand women. People ask me, what do you wish you knew as a teenager? I wish I knew 1/100th of what I know now. It's so easy to create a good relationship if you have the insights and the skill and the life experience. And I've been doing this. That's been my career for 50 years. So how to detach was the first level of it. Then the second level of it is being detached. Don't be indifferent. See, detachment does not mean indifference. And some people confuse I'm detached or I don't care. See, I don't care is indifference, and your heart is closed. But another one is completely free, which is, Buddha would talk about nirvana, and Hinduism talk about samadhi. These are various altered states, which in my 20s, I spent 9 years as a celibate mastering them. So much that my teacher said that you are enlightened, go out and do your thing, right in front of everybody. Then I went out and did my thing, and I traveled around visiting other gurus, and they all knew I was Marshi's personal assistant in the group I was with. That was the TM movement. Anyone know Transcendental Meditation? And we were in it together. Well, all the other gurus in California came out of Switzerland, came back to California, and were visiting just to see what it was like. And they all wanted me to be their teacher, assistant. It was political. It was completely political. That they could have Marishi's #1 student, if you call me #1. Some people did, because I was on the posters with my brain function. Because I learned, I'm a really good student. I learned a dedicated meditation. I found out that, being a monk, the other guys weren't really monks because they were doing this. And the reason I know that, now this is going to sound silly, but I can smell the difference. If you're actually a real celibate and you transmute the energy and it goes up, your sweat smells like semen. It's amazing, because this is the whole point of what I teach now is enlightened sexuality. Enlightened sexuality, you can't just do it if you're a young guy, but you can develop this over time. There's actually a hormone that gets produced when you have sex with your wife versus if you have sex with yourself. It's a completely different hormonal experience in your body. If you have sex with your wife, a hormone, that means somebody you love and they love you, and you're in a committed relationship. Commitment's a big part of it. If you have sex in that situation, your body will make a hormone called prolactin. What prolactin does, inhibits a man's desire to have another woman. See, it's built in. Everybody's writing all these books about, oh, men, you have so much sperm, you're designed to go out there and have sex with all these other women, and polygamy and all this stuff. No, we're not designed for that. We're designed to seek. We have 10 times more desire, generally speaking, than a woman for sex. So sex motivates us to find the woman. And if the woman doesn't love us, we're not in love with them, we're not in a committed relationship, then we don't get this prolactin produced. What ends up being produced is super high levels of dopamine, like you took cocaine, and now you're addicted to go out there and find another woman, find another woman, find another woman, until you find another woman that you're committed to, such that she loves you and you love her. Then your body will make prolactin, and you're not interested in other women. Now, this is nature telling us wisdom. If you have sex, you're going to make a baby, and if you have the baby, man, you have to stay. But what happens today is all has to do is to wipe out your prolactin is to go online and do this.
Oh, yeah.
Or have a one-night stand.
I'm so sorry.
Have a woman have sex with a woman that you're not committed to. I'm going to do question and answers later. That's okay.
I got into it. I apologize.
Yeah, so no, don't. If you're into it, don't apologize. I just want to keep my flow going here, trying to talk to this computer as well. So, but isn't that interesting? Has anybody heard that before? No, nobody knows it. You can ask, but except you know who else knows it? What's his name? AI. Yeah, just ask the AI. And I ask it, what are the studies? Show me the studies that prove this. And there's 3 studies that they've done, biological studies that prove it. Another one of the studies, you can ask AI. I like AI because, at least for this, I read studies and I just remember the study. I don't remember the whole information, whatever. I value just remembering. And I'm not like an academic who has to give a study for everything. None of my books have that, which is why I'm called a popular speaker. You just have to trust what he has to say. But you can back that up on Chat GPT. Also, another one with Chat GPT is that couples who have sex once a week live longer and are healthier. There's some studies that show that it's just the couples who have sex once a week, as opposed to the ones who do more. Now, my experience of dealing with couples that have a lot of sex, in the beginning, most people do. Not everybody, but most people have a lot of sex in the beginning. So we want to understand that. Why? And then it becomes less and less if you get married. Because this hormone, prolactin, inhibits a man's addiction to sex. If you're not addicted to sex, then you're not interested in having sex as much. What allows a man, I say, I have no addiction to sex. Okay, I'm free from that. I have tons of prolactin in my body. I'm a prolactin machine. It frees me from any desire for sex unless I'm in bed with my wife. And it's right back. Or unless she's being extremely vulnerable and it pops right up. Now, what does this mean? Well, let's analyze the whole thing about sex and attraction and passion. In the beginning of a relationship, there's a lot of juice, okay, a lot of attraction. You just want to jump into bed and spend the whole weekend there, or you feel magnetically attracted to them. You just want to be close to them. Okay, so that's the beginning. Why does that happen? Because whenever the brain experiences danger or newness, it produces dopamine, higher levels of dopamine. So I don't have to give a whole talk on that because all of you are familiar now of dopamine. I did write a book 25 years ago on dopamine, serotonin. Now it's this common knowledge. So dopamine is this motivating factor. It motivates you. It creates desire. And most importantly, it creates testosterone in men and it raises estrogen in women. So biologically, when they trace a woman's cycle, when she's still cycling, she will have the strongest desire for sex around 3 days before she ovulates. Why would that be? Because now she can have a baby. So let's seduce some guy and make the baby. Okay, so that's when she's going to be most in the mood. And what's different, but and the same thing with animals, female animals want to have sex only right before ovulation, because that's when they can make a baby. That's nature. But see, we're not just animals. Women can be above animal as well. We're still animals. She has her cycle. And if she doesn't have a mindset or relationships to support the natural changes of her hormones throughout the month, she will experience stress. So if a woman is not experiencing stress, she will have, after her period, her estrogen levels will begin to rise. First, her testosterone and estrogen are about the same. Then it will start to rise. And then about 6 days before ovulation, now estrogen has to accelerate. It will naturally accelerate in a young woman until she's jaded or unless she has a job making a lot of money, which is what's happening now with 30% of women being infertile. To be fertile, your estrogen levels have to be able to double healthy. So if you're doing something that doesn't support estrogen production, it doesn't go up. And when estrogen goes up, the symptom is overwhelm, not enough time, not enough money, not enough love, not enough attention, not enough beauty, whatever it is, not enough. That's the symptom of not enough estrogen and it will increase as it's supposed to go towards ovulation. The whole thing about this talk is romance, love, and longevity. So romance, people figured this out a long time ago. Romance is something a man can do for a woman to raise her estrogen all the way to the top almost every day of the month. It's like a dream for a guy. Oh my gosh, this is great. I have a super happy woman. Because the same happiness she feels when she's, well, we'll just put it this way. When her estrogen levels go high, it only goes high when she's feeling really supported. Okay, this is it, support. So single women, particularly as they get older, they don't have these automatic surges of estrogen that a younger woman would have. When estrogen goes up in a woman, in a man's presence, his testosterone automatically goes up. He has another little nose inside of this nose, 2 flaps. And its only job is to smell pheromones, which are undetectable to the conscious mind. So I'm looking at the young women on the row. They're going to naturally attract more attention from men. Why? Because men smell fertility. And if there's a fertile woman in his presence, the brain thinks she is ovulating. I have a job to do. And that's just attention, interest, checking out the, what's going on over there. So when you get married, naturally you don't get this free testosterone that you get in the beginning. So let me back up for a moment and just explain the basics in my book, Beyond Mars and Venus. Beyond Mars and Venus covers a lot of the ideas of Men Are From Mars, but it's all in terms of hormones. Because that's why I'm kicked out of the major universities, is because they don't think men and women are different. And there's riots if I go there. Students hate me. And I can also point out that the more educated you are, the greater risk of divorce you have. Because you're fed lies. This is 50 years. I've been looking at, actually 45 years, looking at people with a straight face saying there's no difference between men and women. I've had debates and whatever. My mind blows. It's like blindness. And of course, now it's gone further and further, continues. So what happens is when you're punished as a child, you get the message that you're not good enough. And if you get the continued message that you're not good enough, when you are good enough, all children are innocent. In my example is that if I'm driving the car and I let go of the steering wheel and the car crashes into the wall, whose fault is it? Mine, for letting go of control. Well, children do not have the ability to control themselves up to like 13 years old. So it's just poor parenting that when children are misbehaving, the parents are certainly doing their best. Okay, I mean, I don't want to judge parents. It's a tough job, particularly if you're not even home, which is now we have 70% of Black boys and girls growing up without a father in the home. A mother trying to be both a man and a woman at the same time. Think you can do that? Be happy? And if you're not happy, that little boy is going to have the same feeling subconsciously that every man who divorces his wife has. No matter what I do, I can't make her happy. How's a little boy supposed to make the mother happy? And there's some boys who mommy does say, this is called emotional abuse to a boy, which is, your father doesn't make me happy, but you do. I only love you. Your father, he cannot make me happy. Since what message did your child get? It's my job. See, part of what I learned a long time ago, easier for me to learn because I never grew up with that. I had a happy mother. And it was easy for her to be happy because she was spiritual. She had her spiritual practice, which, by the way, 80% of people who are married in America all believe in God. 80%. Only 20% of the married couples believe in God. So believing in God is one of the most important things in my mind to have a happy marriage. So then I go, why would that be? Well, there's some practical things like, well, if you believe in God, many people, you're going to go to a church. There's going to be people around like mine and so forth. But if you don't believe in God, you've got most of the country. Almost all the liberals don't believe in God. I used to be a liberal. Now, I'm the same, but I've always believed in marriage. Now it's taken a turn. It's just gone off. I'm a very free thinker. I like everyone to have freedom to be themselves and so forth. I want to help the poor. This is a big-hearted person, but now it's just lies that men and women aren't different, and that at 8 years old you can know what gender you are, as if it was a question. Ask any child a question. I don't know. What do I like to be? I like to be a bunny. Or an astronaut. It's just kids don't know anything. They only know what's put into them. We're complete sponges, and now it seems to be vogue to be the opposite sex. But even long before that, in feminism, when I started teaching this stuff back in the feminists, women were all proud of, I can do everything a man can do, and I'm just like a man. It was confusion then. So Men Are From Mars came along, and at that time there were a lot of people, 50 million people have loved that book. And continues to travel around the world, 45 languages, way more popular in other countries than here. I've got colleges after my name in China, because they still believe that men and women are different, at least at this point. This is lunacy in America, which has been watching it build. So let's understand biology, because remember the Supreme Court justice who couldn't define a woman? Okay. But you have to be a biologist. That inspired me to write my book on biology. Okay, so the basic biological difference in a more practical way is whenever a woman is stressed, her hormones are more like a man's. Anytime you're stressed, you're producing male hormones like a man. And whenever you're happy, you're producing hormones that are not like a man. So what does it look like if this is simple stuff. You can ask ChatGPT. You can go online and the simplest stuff, just like it's right in front of us. If a woman is stressed, her estrogen levels will be too low for the normal level. The average level for women when they're healthy and they're happy is, we'll put it here. And here happens to be 10 times higher than a man who's healthy and happy. So women have a biological imperative to make this hormone that makes you able to have babies. I have a biological imperative to make testosterone that helps you make babies. My biological imperative is I need to make 10 times more testosterone just to feel good about myself and not be in some anxiety state, some depression state. The state that's very common today for males is procrastination. How many women have been with a man and you kind of notice, you might think they're a little lazy? Any women ever notice that? I got some in the back. Lazy, what's going on? One aspect of it, he's not making enough testosterone. That same guy, if there's a fire, he'll jump up and do whatever has to happen. Because the fire is danger, raises his dopamine, and his testosterone goes up. But all it has to do for a guy is every week doing this, his testosterone just goes further down, down, down. They can't even do a control study on males who have not masturbated. Can't even find him. We're talking, most studies are done on college people, right? They can't find a guy who doesn't do porn and masturbate quite regularly every week. And they've done, well, now that's changing, but those studies are not as available. As women go to their male side, then they become, somebody said on TV here with all of you, what about women? I don't have data on that. But what I do have is my experience with this, which is, because I am a sex counselor as well over the last 50 years, and the 45 years. And we have become a society for women addicted to clitoral climax. But see, that's a huge addiction. Just like men have an addiction to impersonal sex. You can take the husband who's not turned on to his wife at all and put them in front of porn, and you can get an erection right away. So we have this massive porn industry. Japan is the highest. Then comes America. And in that porn industry, in those cultures, what you see is that every year, these are averages, a man's testosterone goes down 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. Every year it's going down. We haven't tested it, so I can say, well, in other generations, that wasn't the case. But I can tell you in my case, since I was 18 years old, I've never done this. And my testosterone is only going higher to where I'm 50%, sometimes 100% higher than my testosterone levels when I was a young man. So I have helped so many men understand why they're depressed, why they're anxious, why they procrastinate, why they're not motivated. And you get them to go off of masturbation, just like you get an alcoholic off of alcohol, and their lives change. And you can read all their stories online. There's a group called NoFab. They don't masturbate. These kids who are just, life was a mess, males. Now what you have is women who use their vibrator, basically use up all their sexual potency, and they don't enjoy vaginal sex. So I have women clients who feel nothing when the penis goes into the vagina. I've even had people come and tell me that, John, scientifically there's no nerves that go to the vagina. I don't know what books you're reading, pal, but my experience tells me elsewhere. Freud first talked about this. We are talking about romance, and implied in romance is sex. And I have to really stay on track here. Already I've talked 45 minutes, so see how fast it goes. So let me just come back to some basics of what I want to say today, which is understanding that for men, he needs to make 10 times more testosterone than a woman. Woman needs to make 10 times more estrogen than a man, just to be stress-free. So when we get stressed, our hormones are out of balance. Whenever a man is angry, for example, and this is against all common knowledge unless they read my books and see this. Whenever a man is angry, his estrogen is surging and his testosterone is going down. Now, most people think testosterone is causing anger. No, when a man is producing testosterone, he's cool, calm, and collected. Right now, my testosterone doubles just being in an audience, doing what I'm good at. So is there any anxiety? Is there any nervousness? And unlike so many other speakers, I feel no nervousness before I come in here. I have no preparation. I just be myself. I don't have to rehearse to be me. And actually rehearsing does produce a lot of anxiety if I was to have to rehearse, because then I have to remember what to say rather than just say what I think. So just being present in the moment. But the whole idea is anxiety, fear is always in a man produced when his estrogen levels go up. Anger only produced in a man when his testosterone goes down, his estrogen goes up. So all of the mindset practices we do, there's a million ways to affect our hormones. I have my basic ones, and I focus a lot on what you're doing in your relationships. Because in my experience, the most powerful way to adjust your hormone levels to being in balance is by being in a relationship with somebody whose body produces that hormone and this body produces that hormone. So then people say, what about gay relationships? Well, it's a whole different category. They do role playing different. One's more masculine, one's more feminine, whatever. But when we come to heterosexual relationships, there's a lot of sex in the beginning because newness goes up. Newness, dopamine, raises testosterone in men, raises estrogen in women, and that creates a magnetic field of attraction, just like two magnets. One polarity, one polarity. And you put those two things together and you get excitement and connection. But the newness of a relationship artificially produces the testosterone in a man and the estrogen in a woman. And once the newness goes away, the passion is gone. That passion is those magnetic, two of these magnets, want to come together. Okay, and the closer you get, the more they come together. And so for me, with so much prolactin, without any need to have sex, I'm a happy guy, fine, but I know what's good for me, and being married is really good for me. And I get into bed with my wife, and kabang! It's actually, if you have two magnets, if they're out like this far away, there's not much attraction, but it's like as soon as they get close, due to the actual magnet, it clicks. That's the turn on. So couples need to get in bed every week. If there's not the desire in her or desire in him, usually he's wanting sex and she doesn't, up into between 35 and 40. After he's been rejected so many times, his interest in sex has waned. It's not that big a deal. I can let it go. All my friends in their 70s, don't even get erections. And I say, you could get this going. I don't care about that. It's too much trouble, too much bother. Why should I bother with that? I say, you bother with that for longevity. Okay. The same hormone, you want to produce the same hormones you produced when you were a teenager. When you were a young person. These are the youthing hormones. And particularly for males, that's more important than for females. Because see, women can produce estrogen without a man. Just not as much, but they can certainly produce. And you see women who get divorced, the average, these are the averages. There's always exceptions, okay? Remember, I'm not saying everybody, but the averages. After a woman gets a divorce, 9 years before she's married again, if she gets married. And for men, it's 3 years and almost always. Why? Because we can't live without sex. And then we stop being able to fulfill the sexual desire, then we stop living. So we look at having a sexual partner, like my wife is in another country right now, and she says, do you miss me? I say, yes, I miss you so much, but are you lonely? It's like a song, are you lonely tonight? I go, I'm not lonely because I know you'll be coming home soon. It was such a sweet feeling, because if I was single and alone, I would be lonely. But I watch, I look, I'm not lonely at all. I miss her, I love her to be here. I also have enough prolactin so I don't get horny. See, this is like a freedom. I know one of the greats of the great philosophers, I can't remember his name, but it was before me, but I read his book. And he said when he turned 70 was the happiest moment of his life because the dragon had died. It's terrible to be horny and not have somebody to make love with. It's terrible. And for him, ironically, he's a spiritual teacher. He used to down a whole bottle of vodka before every talk. One of his agents told me that. I said, do you drink? I said, no, I don't have any addictions. But my friends would say, well, John's really addicted to sex. But I'm not addicted because she can go away. I'm fine. But when she's in bed next to me, have sex almost every night. Now, why would that be? This is an advanced enlightened sexuality. I like to mention it. I can't teach it in a short period of time. But it's to be able to become orgasmic as a man without having to end it with an ejaculation. Now, I learned to do this as a celibate monk, but I wasn't having sex with a woman. I just learned to meditate, transmute the energy up. So I've developed techniques for couples, but you can't even think of doing these techniques unless you're producing a lot of prolactin. You have to be free from the addiction. You have to immediately stop today doing this if you're a man. Then when you do have a partner and you're having sex, you start learning how to have sex longer and longer. And then that's the beginning of it. This younger generation, sex is 2 to 3 minutes. That's it. Sex, 2 to 3 minutes. And some people look at their phones during sex. Of course, they're not madly in love with each other. That's a good joke, but it's true. So a good thing to know. All right, so here we have a biological basis of well-being for men and women. Now, so during upward towards ovulation, if you're still cycling for a woman, it's a progression of increasing estrogen. Now, in my book, I explain all kinds of things you can do as a woman to increase your estrogen that are not dependent on a man. And if you're married, you have to do those as well. You never want to be dependent on a man for everything, or his job is too difficult and impossible, because you're not designed to get everything you need from a man. I remember one talk I gave to a bunch of unhappy women, and I said, your foundation, women, is to learn how to be happy without a man. And they all went, yeah. Okay, I said, well, I think you've been jaded a bit here. You have to be happy without a man and be happier with a man. And that's how I look at my role with my wife. My job is not to make her happy. My job is to make her happier. So if she's unhappy, I just have to step back. She's a grown-up. She can take care of herself. She can ask for help. I'm happy to help. I don't take anything personally. This was a big step in my life, which is for the younger man who doesn't understand this, when your partner's unhappy, you become unhappy. And the reason you become unhappy, it's really hard to be with an unhappy partner because we demand that they be happy to feel good. Because see, when a man makes a woman happy, he feels really good. If I make my audience happy and they're all happy to see me, I feel really good. I feel successful. Success is the magic phrase that builds testosterone in men. To feel that I am being acknowledged by the outer world in relationships as successful in making a difference. Do you have to be #1 author in the world? No. You just have to be successful at something which is meaningful to other people. Otherwise, I'd be depressed. I was #1 for a long time. Not anymore. Okay, around the world I am, but in America, I was just looking at today, you know, from Mars dropped to 6,000. I mean, most of my friends, I look at theirs, it's like 500,000, 300. Then, so why do I look at that? Why did I look at that today? Occasionally I want to look at, well, how many people are reading my books? Which, by the way, I actually know by the royalties I get. And I think they're lying on Amazon because they pay me more money than based upon selling more books than what they say. So I don't know. But funny business goes on when you're hated. I am hated by some people. And I understand it because many women over these last years have read Men Are From Mars and they go, I feel like I'm from Mars. And then I feel like I'm telling them something's wrong with you. Because I'm over here talking about men are this way, women are this way. They don't relate to the examples of being feminine. So I haven't really looked at those examples. I'll do them real quickly now because my time's running out. One of the big estrogen producers is when you talk about your feelings. Anytime you talk about what you feel and somebody's listening, your estrogen levels will go up. I call this a biohack of your hormones. And people figure this out. That's all the whole, you know, we look at therapy where primarily you're just talking about your feelings to somebody. 95% of the people who go to therapists are women. Now there's another realm of coaching, which is not always feeling oriented, but goal oriented and looking at, being accountable to doing what you think, analyzing and so forth. You'll get more men doing that and women doing that. But over here, when it comes to just paying somebody to talk to, that's 95% are women. Why? Because women produce estrogen when they complain. It's amazing. So just go and complain to somebody, and you go to a therapist because your friends don't want to listen anymore, or your husband, he'll tell you, but you're wrong. Look, and he doesn't always say, look on the bright side of things, or why be upset about that? Or that's not really a big deal. Why focus on that? Because he processes his stress differently. Men process stress, one of the ways we do it, there's lots of ways, but to rebuild testosterone, you have to solve problems or forget problems. See, what we do, how many times does a man say to a woman, she's upset, just forget it. Don't make a big deal out of it. And if she might say, well, I'm not making a big deal, I just want to talk about it. He says, well, if you're not making a big deal out of it, why would you want to talk about it? It's a downer. What I teach men is a biohack is when a woman is talking about anything on the inside, don't talk. Just don't speak. And you even look at some of the romantic novels of all time. It's the quiet guy, the mysterious man. Women just go wild, because he's detached, but he's not indifferent. He's listening. I'm here. And if he's wise, he even asks questions like, well, help me understand that better. Or, really? Tell me more. Or if she's talking about a real bad thing, oh, bummer. Guttural noises. Don't talk. Because what happens, I alluded to this before, is some of the problems. There's just so much, I don't always finish every point. I apologize for that, but I only have an hour. But when with the mirror cells, what goes on is when a woman starts to express emotion, if a man is not really clear about your role in that moment to provide a space for her to express anything she's going to say without you getting emotionally tangled with what she's saying, taking it personally. That's what men do. We take it personally. Because I want to know how many books I'm selling. I want to know how happy my wife is. And if I feel that I'm the only, that because she's married to me, she should be happy all the time, a really stupid thought to have. So I wrote in Men Are From Mars, women are like waves. They don't stay the same. They're always wearing different outfits. They're doing their hair different. They're doing their makeup different. They're doing their emotions different. They're changing all the time. They're going to be really happy. They're not going to be happy. And until they understand men, they're going to blame you for their unhappiness. Because that feels even better. It's got more juice with it. So I remember there was a time in my marriage with Bonnie where she came to me. I said, honey, what is going on? You know, why aren't you happy? She said, John, I am so happy in my life. I have an ideal life. I have home, children, insurance, everything I want, travel, first class. My life is amazing. My only problem, you. So I'm going, what is this? What's going on here? Then I realized, okay, she has so much positivity. What happens is every woman has negativity all the time if she looks at it. Like, how many of you have concerns right now? Take a moment. How many of you have concerns about something going on? There's a concern. Who else has some concerns? Like how, whatever, your life is filled with, why do I even give this talk? I'm concerned. I got to get there on time. I'm concerned I'm going to make the right thing. Concern, everybody's got it. So my wife walking around like everything was perfect. I said, well, start telling me some of your concerns other than me. And she started talking about, I'm concerned with our daughter here. I'm concerned about this here. I'm concerned about this here. Now, that's another version of complaining. And then we talk about her friends or whatever. Well, tell me about your disappointments. And we started taking me not being the center subject in her life to other things that were bothering her that would be very easy for me to listen to. Okay. And suddenly I was no longer the big problem in her life. I was solving everything by not saying anything, but just being interested and knowing where some of her issues were. Well, how did you feel about that? And for us, even as we got older, politics. I get her to talk about politics. I would happily watch MSNBC with her and we could talk about it. Now I throw up watching it, but she's not here, okay? Sorry, we're living in a very politically charged area here, but we've seen this extreme thing going on. It's all about people getting so sensitized because they have no sense of self. Because if you're not anchored as women in your female side, everything's going to be hurt, insensitive. And if a man's not anchored in his male side, everything's going to make him angry. And if he's not angry, he's going to be passive. He's going to have addiction. All addiction in men is he's too far on his female side. So let's understand this one concept we'll all walk away with. Whenever you feel independent, look what I can do. And somebody says, good job. Or at least you see it was a good job. My testosterone goes up. One interesting study was they had men doing these problem solving questionnaires. They're studying men solving problems, and they told one group they did the best. Their testosterone went up. Another group who actually did the best and said, well, you failed. Their testosterone went down. It's a matter of my attitude. Am I a success or am I not a success? That's what determines testosterone in a man. But we are not islands. We are dependent upon each other for messages to give us reassurance that I am a success, that I make a difference is really the thing. Now, for women, that's their male side, and you all have a male side. It's your testosterone side. You make plenty of testosterone. It's just you need to make a lot more estrogen than a man makes. So the estrogen side of it, whenever you're feeling supported, when you're getting some kind of support that's meaningful to you. For me, anytime I'm giving support that's meaningful to you, my testosterone goes up. Anytime you're receiving support from someone that's meaningful to you, your estrogen will go up. So doctor visits. Women are way more active with doctor visits. You know, the doctor, medical, and community. How can we get men to come in? How do we get them to come in? Men don't come in unless they have to. Women are happy to come in. Oh, I'm going to get my test. And oh, I'm going to get my test. Oh, we're going to talk to him. Oh, and I'm going to go talk to my therapist. And I'm going to learn something. Book reading. All these relationship books, 90% of them all bought by women. And look, it's whenever you're feeling of something of value to you, and relationships are valuable in that they're the major source of estrogen. Work is a major source of testosterone. But after your testosterone goes to normal and you're a man, you will become empty if you're not using what you've made. If you're not, so I'm serving you and I'm going to go home, never see many of you again. My testosterone will go way up. But when I can now come home and provide something from today for my wife, my testosterone will go even higher. So this is my selfless. I mean, here I'm promoting a book, I'm selling stuff, whatever, and that's all good. That's my job. There's nothing wrong with that. That will take me so high. But now I'm going to go give my wife the benefit of my work, and my testosterone will go higher. And it will definitely go higher when we make love. Sex is so, so important. It doesn't have to happen every day. I said for myself, because I have to be honest about this, but it's once you learn enlightened sexuality, where you're free from addiction, you can have sex every day. But if a man is in a relationship and he ejaculates, his testosterone will go right back down. So the research on this, there's data on this. A man ejaculates on Saturday night with his wife or with whoever, his testosterone will go down to baseline. Then he has sex on Tuesday. Has sex, testosterone goes to baseline. Saturday morning, he wakes up, his testosterone's at baseline. Has sex, goes back down to baseline. Baseline goes down 1% every year as an average in our culture. Now, what happens if he has sex on Saturday night and goes for 6 days without doing this and not having sex? On the 7th day, his testosterone levels will increase 50%. Wow. He will be the man that you married who was getting all that dopamine without the dopamine. Because you're not going to get free dopamine in a relationship. We do create a little extra dopamine by romantic date, where you go somewhere new and different. That's why it will help bring up the testosterone, the estrogen, it raises the dopamine. But they're so weak. That's very important to do that. So I analyzed, this is on romance. What is romance? Well, think about it. Opening the car door for a woman is considered, in the old days, romance. Why? She can open the car door herself. So when I did it the first time with Bonnie, she says, "Oh, John, I can do that." I said, "Honey, of course you can do that. But you do so much for me, so many people. Let me do things for you tonight. Let me take care of you tonight." And what happens? Surge of estrogen. And I keep repeating that. I take her to a restaurant. A restaurant, she can cook herself, but somebody's going to do something for her that she could do for herself. And that's the foundation of all romance, is when, almost all romance, is when a man does for her something she could do for herself, and she doesn't have to do, because you say, "I'm going to do that for you, and I'm happy to do it." Her estrogen levels will shoot up. So what I've created is a series of hacks to hack a woman's hormones so she will feel so romanced that she will want to have sex with me every night. Because see, for me, having prolactin, not having the addiction, I just have to be with a happy woman, my wife. She will keep the prolactin going, but she's also happy. Then she will easily be in the mood. And she's in the mood, then I'm more in the mood. She's in the mood, I'm more in the mood. It just goes like that. As opposed to what happens for many couples is the newness goes away. And the husband says to his wife, if they communicate at all, "Hey, honey, do you want to have sex?" "No, I'm not really in the mood." Why? Because a woman is in the mood when her estrogen levels double. So that's why we have what's called foreplay techniques. Romance, a night for her, and in the morning, they're lying in bed, and he knows what to do to stimulate her body. First, raise oxytocin. Oxytocin is physical touch without the goal of having sex. If you touch a woman with the goal of having sex, her estrogen doesn't go up. It's like built-in disaster if you don't understand biology. So you touch in a non-goal-oriented way, you're being affectionate. "I love you, honey." And I'll give one biological hack. I want you to know you're all in this area. You'll learn so many biohacks if you come to that class that I advertised. It's coming up August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So it's all day Friday, all day Saturday, and half of Sunday. And that's in your area here. This will change your life. You'll learn biohacks. But for sex, you have to get a woman out of her head, into her heart, into her body. Okay, this is like the whole thing. And if men have more sexual energy in the beginning of sex, then women are kind of like the guy gets on his horse and rides off and she's left in the dust. He does the whole thing and she's not equally with it. So the idea is you're staying cool, calm, and collected, feeling love. But how do you get a guy to feel love when our biology doesn't help us to feel it? What does help us to feel it, though, is erections. If a man has an erection, his testosterone has to go really high and his estrogen has to go high. That's the role of a woman. So he can't just do it himself. Otherwise, it'd just be addicted to do this advanced stuff I'm talking about. Be married, be in love, have prolactin. How do you do it? You get into bed and you have all these biohacks that help his testosterone to be much higher than hers, and these biohacks that help her estrogen to be much higher than his. Now you have the romantic attraction. You have passion. Passion is two magnets coming together and going like that. And then you don't want to be the average guy who's done in 3 minutes, okay, or a total 8 minutes. Okay, it's like they've done computers record everything that's done on porn. They analyze everything. If you look at the average guy going onto porn, he goes on there and he hunts for the right woman that has some kind of reaction inside of him. And then he has sex with her like this in his head, or talks to her for a while. If she's live, it could be just pictures. He does this and he's off. And the whole experience is 8 minutes. That's it. It's such a meaningless waste of life force energy, and we're addicted to it. Just like if I was to be addicted to cocaine, it'd be meaningless life force loss. So and the symptom of that is decreasing testosterone and high estrogen. Because anytime you're dependent on something to feel good, what hormone gets produced? Estrogen. When you're depending on service, making a difference to others, testosterone gets produced. So a woman in the workplace, she's going to go right into overworking. Women outdo men in the workplace now. And by the way, they do make, for the same level of education, if a woman is single, she will make 30% more money than a man. For a dollar, 30 cents more on the dollar. All that stuff they talk about, women getting paid less, that's all 30 years ago. It's all changed now. Women are making all the money. Women get things done. You can cheer for women, but they can't sleep at night, and they stay single, and they become infertile, and they're taking antidepressants. I was teaching in Brazil at a medical conference. The doctors were talking about the stress level is so high for women, not men, for women, that 95% of women have to take sleeping pills to sleep at night. 95%. It's because it's a total stress, and this is where everybody's lost traditional roles. Now, the good news of what I'm teaching is that's never going to change as a whole thing. We're trapped into the two-earner family. If you want to have a house and apartment, the man's got to work, the woman's got to work. That's why nobody's having kids. That's another reason. But it's just too expensive. It used to be a man could provide enough support to have a family and a home. To a certain extent, not every man, but that was a general thing. Now forget about it. So leaving finances to the side, as I mentioned, if a woman has more money, that's the first example I gave. She has all this money. And I say to her, what if you didn't have a job? What if you didn't have a savings account? What if you were pregnant with a baby and your husband was making $700,000 a year? What would you feel? Totally happy. You would be depending upon him, and he would be able to provide a good lifestyle for you. Whenever women are depending, they produce a lot of estrogen. Now, estrogen is not the only hormone important for women. There's also progesterone. After ovulation, then she needs to keep making estrogen. So relationship is still important where you're depending, but progesterone has to be higher. And progesterone is produced through social bonding. That means you have friends, you interact with them, you do fun things with people. Or if you're an introvert type, you do fun things for yourself, like taking a bath, working in the garden. You know, you have your hobbies and whatever. That's doing what you love to do, doing what you like to do produces progesterone. If you have a job and you do not like going to the job, you will be depressed. I cannot like going to my job. I will not be depressed if they pay me. That's all it takes for men is pay them. They can hate the job, but makes a lot of money. He'll be glad to do it. What does he do with that money? Provides it for somebody. His testosterone doubles again. So another example of testosterone in a man, I'm watching Joe Rogan's show. These are high testosterone guys quite often. And Joe Rogan, which is interesting. Many of them are comedians because they can make light of stuff. See, testosterone is like nothing to worry about. Got it in control. Everything's okay. What's wrong with you? Instead of really, that's a woman. If you want to have a woman be orgasmic, you got to validate that. Oh, it was terrible. I can't believe that happened to you, honey. Tell me more. What else? Oh, how can I help? See, it's having just these skills. If man doesn't know those and you just follow your instincts, you're going to treat her like another guy, which will ruin your relationship. But here's Joe, and he's talking to one of these really super men. I mean, he gets up every morning at 4 o'clock. He runs 8 miles, and then he swims. You know, he does his bicycle. And Joe says, "You do that every morning?" He says, "Yeah." And Joe says, "And do you love it?" "I hate it every morning. I hate getting up. I hate doing that. But when I'm done, I feel like king of the world." That's masculinity. And he doesn't whine about it, of course. If he whined about it, his estrogen would go up. You suck it up. Remember the thing, all the film, oh, poor little boys, they had to suck it up. Oh, it's so terrible. We didn't get to cry. That's not why boys get messed up. It's parents who don't stay together, who don't love each other. Now you've got a messed up boy and a messed up girl. Because why would I want to be with a man? My father, what good qualities did he have? So anyway, that's my commitment to show not all men are so bad. They're not. They're so amazing. So there's more I have to share with you. A lot is in my book, Beyond Mars and Venus. I do have the upcoming course. I know that I couldn't finish every point. I wish I could, but time is time. I'm going to pass this around. And if anybody's, what I didn't talk about, besides good communication skills for hormonal balance, there are certain supplements that you can take that will help you. Not taking hormones, but certain supplements that you can take. Matter of fact, one of them was this one. This is one I sell at my website that I formulated over 25 years ago. I used to have a whole live, I used to have 40 different products for different things. I don't do that anymore. I just hold on to this one because it's so good for lowering stress levels to balance hormones. So, and we had the bottle and somebody took it. So, and they said, "Oh, John, somebody took it." I said, "That's okay. We want people to take it." That's my reaction. So I also really recommend, part of how I got into the health part of this is when I turned 50, I'm 73 now, but when I was 50, I had Parkinson's. You know, my family, lots of them have died from these kind of conditions. So it was in my genes. I healed it. That's why I became a fanatic. I created a wellness center. I bring all these doctors in to learn about nutritional supplementation. I used to have online health food store, and I'm not interested anymore. I'm so healthy. Okay, so, but I want to make this available. It's at marsvenus.com is where you'll see it right on the front page, and you won't see much about it. You have to click on a button and it'll go to Amazon, which has a write-up of it. But what I also have is my team provide nutritional support for other things besides this. Particularly my favorite is amino acid supplementation. Because if you're not digesting your food fully, you're not making the precursors to dopamine and serotonin. And if you don't make the precursors to dopamine and serotonin, then you're not going to be able to make your hormones. So it's very important to balance the focus and the relaxation part of us. I also believe in meditation. I want you to know at SoulSearch TV, every Wednesday at 7 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, I do a guided meditation, and it's wonderful. I think meditation is the foundation of all my success, and then comes sex. Sex is longevity. And part of the whole thing is when it comes to sex, too much sex, couples lose interest. Not enough sex, couples lose interest. And yet I'm over here too much sex, but it's just so natural because I've learned this other technique, which was only, people have heard of Tantra and people have heard of Taoism. Well, I teach in China a lot, learned a lot there. But these ancient cultures, you'll see some cities, almost everybody has the DNA of one guy. because he had so many children because he lived for hundreds of years. I mean, this is a reality for men. It wasn't a reality for women, but women were not as enlightened then as they are now. Because, see, what women can do now that women couldn't do then is go to their male side. Okay, what women can, and men are on their male side, but they go to their female side by having sex with a woman. That's the only way these guys would, Genghis Khan, for example, another example. He didn't live that long because of violence, but he made a lot of babies. And so I can be on my female side primarily. I can be so on my male side, but make love to my wife and I'm balanced. For a woman, unless you have the opportunities that you have today as women to be independent, that's your male side, then you can have independence and intimacy where you can be dependent on a partner. That allows you to experience this multi-orgasmic state. So it's opportunities for women to make love for longevity as well. I just don't have the ancient knowledge on that. So here is, if you would like, I'm going to pass this around. It'll be around. If you're interested in being contacted, we'll contact you, set up a call to get any nutritional support that you might need or wish or want. I have recommendations, and this person will just give you recommendations. I've worked with them for 25 years. So I'm going to pass this around. If you'd like to be on my mailing list, you can put it in there. And if you want to just put wellness, then we'll connect with you for wellness. But, I'm going to have to officially end, and then I'm going to stay to answer questions. Okay, because some people have to be gone right now because I just want to know what time it is. It's already some, what is it, 15 minutes after 6? 20 minutes after. So that's part of my life. I'm timeless all the time. So if you would like to gently go out, this will be over. If you want to sign this card, we will contact you if you wish about wellness suggestions from me. I just think that health is so important. I think romance, sex, but for longevity, we want to keep our hormones in balance. There's certain things we can take to help. So our people can help you with that. It's a whole nother talk, but also more personalized. So we're going to do question and answers, and other people can wander out if you're done. And come on out. I won't take it personally. Sometimes people have to go. Oh yeah, if you want to. Thank you for coming. I know some people have appointments. I'm not going to take it personally. Sometimes I'll stay in a long talk, just I don't want to hurt the speaker's feelings. So, but I know I'm over time, so anytime you leave, I know that's the reason. Who has a question? Yes, right there. Think real loud, real loud.
Yeah. So I have a question. It sounds like to me, with your methods of communication and knowing men are it would take two people who already have a well-rounded communication to find greater success. Is that true?
I think that you have to be somewhat free of addiction.
Free of addiction.
I think that's the key factor. And some people really are severely wounded from their childhoods, and which shows up as addiction. For women, it would be addiction to thinking negatively. It would be meant addiction to substances or to anger. These are realities where you need personal therapy. But a lot of times, just understanding the dynamics of what's going wrong can change everything. I just can't say that it fixes everybody. It doesn't. Or it doesn't fix every relationship.
So, for example, if you have the empath to narcissist relationship.
Oh, that one. Let me. This is
under addiction.
Oh, everything. Well, a narcissist you could call has an addiction without a doubt. But we have a phenomena where online, every problem a woman has, he's a narcissist. There's a percent of those men are narcissists. Okay, large percent are not. I have 50 years experience of women telling me he's a narcissist, and then we find out that he's not at all. Okay, she is codependent. If you are in a relationship with a man who turns out to be a narcissist in your mind, for example, here's where a woman would think I'm a narcissist. I'm going to go home. Let's say my wife was there. I say, hey, honey, I want to give you a hug. That's important. That's 4 hugs a day is another biohack. I pursue her. I find her. I give her a hug. She's out of town right now. Every day I send her a text. I miss you, sweetie. I love you so much. I did this and this and this today. How's your day? See, that little thing produces estrogen. I'm thinking of her. I care about her, whatever. So I know to do that. If a man doesn't know to do that, he won't do that. He'll just simply go, well, she's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. So isn't she fine? No, she's a woman. She needs reassurance every day that she's number one. Just like I need reassurance that in my field, who I am, I'm number one. Okay? Everybody wants to be number one. One of the most powerful experiences for me after 6 months of selling more books than any other book in America for 6 months based on my royalties, finally they put me as number one. They did not want to put me as number one on the New York Times. It did not go up to number one for 4.5 years. Unbelievable. But the whole memory for me, what was it like? I don't remember any of that stuff. All I remember is that day where I was number one. And I get us just remembering that moment. What a surge to be number one. I don't have to be that big of a surge now. I have plenty of testosterone. But that day, every woman needs to be number one. And then you maintain it. But she needs number one in reassurance. So here's a biohack. My favorite biohack that I do every day with my wife and on the phone as well when she's gone. The biohack is she says to me, John, do you love me? Yes, I love you. I don't say, of course I love you. Why did I marry you? No, I say, yes, I love you. Then she says, how much do you love me? I say, honey, I love you with all my heart. And then she says, do you still think I'm beautiful? You are so beautiful, honey. I just look at you sometimes when you're sleeping. You're gorgeous. Are you happy you married me? I'm so happy I married you. I just feel like the luckiest guy in the world. I almost say the same thing every time. Doesn't matter. But she opens the door. See, that's vulnerability. It's a scary thing. Most of you women have heard this. You won't go and do it because you'll be afraid what he's going to say. And if you haven't organized, we're doing a process here where a man is just focused on, I've got a role here to let my heart speak, to provide reassurance. Just like I like to have when I'm done with a talk, everybody claps. Nobody claps. I kind of feel like, oh, maybe I didn't do as good, So that clapping is wonderful. But this is a beautiful thing. Now, if I just said to my wife, I love you, I'm so happy, you're so beautiful, it kind of deflects. It just deflects. What happens is when you throw that on her, a part of her, yeah, but why did you forget to do this? And why did you forget to do that? But no, it's a partnership. Romance is two people, but for the woman, it's I'm opening up, I'm becoming more vulnerable. And to say to your husband, do you love me? What he said, well, maybe if you went to the gym, I'd love you more. It's just ridiculous. It's the stupidest things we men say. So he has to know what his script is. Don't deviate from giving positive, reassuring messages. And then sometimes women say, well, what if he doesn't really feel it? You don't understand men. When a man says something, particularly in response to a need, his feelings follow. So I am a male. I have 25% more muscle cells in my body than your average woman would. Now, those muscle cells inhibit the production of estrogen. The only time I surge in estrogen is when I'm taking care of a child children really need you a lot, my little grandchildren, or when my wife is being vulnerable. This is why sex is so important to men. Because for a woman to want sex, it means she already has gotten to the high level of opening her heart to you, depending on you for something important. And then women get to this level of liking sex just as much as their husbands, wanting it just as much as their husbands, not needing all of the foreplay, even though that's still very fun to do. But for most marriages, you just start with teaching men the skills of what you have to do in foreplay, which is written a whole book on that, which is called, Mars, Venus in the Bedroom. I also have a class online, which is called Enlightened Sexuality. And it's just men need to be informed, and they actually need to be reminded of this several times, because our body has such an urge to just, we're Ferraris. We want to go to the goal. And what I recommend is have no goal. And eventually for men, you're able to actually have zero goal. And just the goal is providing love and fulfillment. Oh, let me just phrase it the way I do. Instead of seeking out pleasure, and this is almost every book on sex talks about how to increase your pleasure, all these things you can do. And then when it's not pleasurable, let's use these toys to do that. And then when that loses it, then let's bring in other people to do that. Two's better than one. Come on now. So let's just keep trying to increase pleasure by new and different, and intensifying. What happens when you intensify is a spasm happens and it's over. You intensify and it's done. You lose all your sexual potency. So what enlightened sexuality is not seeking intensity, not seeking to increase pleasure, but instead allowing the pleasure to increase all by itself. And when it does, it will come in waves. So when it happens in waves, everything feminine is the wave. Particle is male, hard, female is soft, and it goes like this. So what happens is the pleasure will start to increase in women, then it will start to decrease. And that's where they focus in on needing extra stimulation to maintain that level of pleasure, rather than letting it come down, letting it come back up, letting it come back down. There's a few of the tips. But the key thing with enlightened sexuality, which is going to keep you healthier and live longer and be happier and more stress-free, is when you have sex, you're not trying to increase. That's not your main goal. Certainly it's pleasurable. You don't want to do non-pleasurable things. Our body is designed to have certain pleasure points. Now, you're stimulating in a very gentle, in the moment kind of thing, not seeking to intensify. So why are you even having sex in the first place if you're not seeking your orgasms or whatever? Is that you're feeling pleasure in order to feel more. And when you feel more, then you express that feeling from the heart through your words, and you get a whole body experience. And when the sexual energy is all the way going through your whole body, you don't build up tension. You just have these waves of increasing ecstasy and pleasure. And this goal-orientedness really disturbs the natural process. If you could remember just the first time, and everything was just so automatic and feeling so good. And then it will start to go away, and then we try to grab it back rather than letting it go away and letting it come back up. Letting it go away and come back up. And for women, that looks like the stimulation of the clitoris is a way to bring it back up right away, as opposed to an enjoyable thing. For many women, stimulating the clitoris is not good because she didn't first get other hormones get produced. Breasts produce oxytocin and estrogen. The clitoris stimulates testosterone. So it becomes a balancing factor to the increasing relaxation and the love she starts to feel. Oxytocin, estrogen, you feel love when you're feeling love. So even at this stage, what you do is you do the reassurance exercise. Your partner's naked next to you, or gradually getting undressed, hugging and kissing in a non-sexual way. No pressure to have sex at all, just to be close physically. Then you do the little reassurance exercise. I said, honey, let's do reassurance. And she'll say, oh, do you love me? Yes, I love you. How much do you love me? You think I'm beautiful? You're the most beautiful woman in the world. And by the way, when a woman is naked, what women don't know, you are the most beautiful woman in the world. It's when he has an erection and you're somewhat naked, you are the most, he cannot think of anybody else. Unless he's doing porn, then he's going to be thinking of those women. But this was like, I was learning, as a man, well, how does my body work? What goes on? I married Bonnie, and, the excitement of newness and lots of sex. We went to the sex store, not the sex store, but the sex outfit store. Whatever they were called back in those days. And so we went in, and there's already a poster of a woman in a purple bra with some things around it, making it a little sexy, and little panties. And I go, oh, honey, let's get that. And she goes, John, that's not my body. I said, no, that is your body. She goes, no, that's not my body. Because you have different body types, you can learn different things. So this is the perfect model type thing you see in front of a magazine out in front of the store. And I go, no, honey, that's you. That's you. She says, that's not me, John. That's not me. No, that I was convinced that was her. Well, that night when she got naked, I looked, I said, oh, that's not her. So I don't suggest, it's just a little biohack. In your marriage relationships, don't wander around naked unless he's turned on. It's layer after layer. See, it's letting it unfold, let it unfold. And same thing with the guy's penis. You shouldn't just be naked. You should have something on. And then, she should occasionally put her hand around, see if anything's happening, and just a little grazing over. In the same way, he should graze over her nipples and her breast. And then something happens, you put more attention on it. Then once his penis is pushing out so much, it's got to take off the underwear. It's the arousal is the most fun part of the whole thing. It's just like amazing. We all just want to rush through it. Get it done. At least men typically want to just rush through it. And anyway, I don't know. That was an answer to somebody's question. Oh, that was reassurance. We all need reassurance. It's so beautiful to be able to have a wife who is basically feeling, I need reassurance. Now, Bonnie for the first several years, she kept telling me, she was clear about what she needed from me. And I couldn't understand this reassurance thing. It's like, what do you need reassurance for? Wait, she says, John, even when you walk in the room, I just want you to notice me. I said, see, my mind goes, I don't care if you notice me. I'm sitting there watching TV. Forget about me. Leave me alone. I don't care. No, if you walk into a room, you notice the person who's most important to you. So women are always looking for this reassurance. She is number one. And of course, we got all these people, oh, that's not enlightened at all. That's ridiculous. Even the most, quote, enlightened people, they're set up front. I'm the only one. You know, Jesus, I'm the way and the light and everything. Number one. Everybody wants to be number one. It's totally fine to be number one. And that's what marriage is about. I can make my children and my wife more important than everybody. And that's really important to be a spiritual person, because I just want to give to everybody. But no, I get this boat, you know, if you give away everything, you have nothing. So here I give to my wife, but what I get back is this lifetime of love. But we have to have the skills to do it today, because as women, their ability to feel love is restricted depending upon how much they're on their male side. But this is the good news. She can be on her male side, doing a dirty, dangerous, difficult, stressful job, anticipating coming home to a relationship where she can get certain emotional needs met. Her emotional needs met. Then her estrogen levels go up. That's the key. And she's in a relationship with a man where she also feels complete freedom to be selfish. Okay. So this was codependence and narcissism. So what narcissism is, simplified without saying it in psychological terms, selfish guy. Okay. Women go, he's selfish. Well, here's a guy who comes home, healthy guy. What every healthy guy is going to do is work hard and come home and relax. He's going to have a hobby. He's going to have his cave time, is what I call, and I describe all the different types of behaviors. And during that time, he's ignoring you. He has to ignore you, because if he attends to you, his estrogen goes up, and he comes home to rebuild his testosterone. Because see, I've been solving problems all day, and they're stressful. I run out of testosterone. So I come home and I solve other problems that are not stressful. It could be I watch the news. You know, father knows best. He would watch a newspaper. Okay. Now we have TV, so I'm watching the news. For me, that's a good one, because I don't get upset about evil, because I believe in God. You know, my wife would see all the evil that goes on. Corrupt governments are evil. We're in a war right now. It's evil. Okay, this is pure evil. We're destroying a country. It's evil. Anytime you're killing people, it's evil forces at bay. So some people can't look at that. They don't want to hear that. They want to go into denial about that. I understand evil. If you believe in God, you know evil exists. It took me a long time to get to that place. I've been defrauded out of millions and millions of dollars for people who sought me out through my friends to invest in things to take my money, just to completely cheat me. I couldn't believe it, because you're all good people. You wouldn't be at my talk if you weren't a good person. You can't imagine how other people don't think the way you think. It's shocking. There are evil people. We call them in psychology sociopaths, psychopaths. They exist. They're real. They want to control your life in every way. Now, I'm just going to stop from going into politics. Okay, we'll come back to loving relationships. So what we have is this phenomena of women all thinking men are narcissistic. Well, if my wife didn't understand men in their cave, she'd think, well, why is he just going to his cave? He's ignoring me, ignoring the family. He's not offering to help me with anything. So we have a book before Men Are From Mars was called Codependent No More. Now, codependent describes almost every woman who's ever come into my office. Codependent means you tend to make somebody else's needs more important than your own. If you're a woman who's codependent, you will make a man narcissistic, if you want to use that term, because you're basically, when he gives you less, you end up giving him more. Imagine I go to a job and you pay me more if I don't do anything. What's going to happen? I'm going to lose my motivation to do things. Now, what happens in all of the communist countries in the world? Okay, the whole creativity of the culture goes down to poverty and violence. It's always happened, because if I'm a man and I'm dependent on the government, I'm making estrogen all the time. And if I'm a man and another man gets the same amount of income and the same amount of benefits from doing nothing, I'm not going to be motivated to do more. Men are based upon motivation, testosterone. Testosterone, if I don't go to work, I don't get paid. If I don't go to work, no woman's going to want to have sex with me. And if I don't have a happy woman, I'm not going to live a long, healthy life. Even though I want to say, statistically, married couples live longer than those who are not married. Yeah, that's just, and then people will say to me, well, those are the married couples that are happy. No, those are the married couples who stick it out. Because a man who sticks it out, whether it be good or not good, his testosterone levels will be higher. Just because enduring suffering without whining and complaining or giving up produces testosterone. So I'm not recommending staying in a dysfunctional relationship. I'm recommending fix it. And you can't fix it unless you have another way of interacting. And a lot of women don't understand when a relationship ends, or men, how they created the problem. So for women, they take 9 years because they don't know how they created the problem. Certainly the other person's part of the problem. He's a narcissist. They don't realize I'm a codependent. I overgive. I don't know how to ask. I complain a lot. And they'll tell me, but I have reason to complain a lot. No, there's no reason to complain except to ruin your relationship. It's inevitable. You complain, a man will have less motivation to do things for you. Complain is you're a failure. You're not good enough. You're not making me happy. So where's his testosterone? It crashes. And unfortunately, women are addicted to complaining, whether it be a man or woman, produces dopamine. You're looking at negative. Negative is danger. Danger stimulates dopamine. The more you complain, they've done MRI scans of people who are endlessly in grief. And there is important, you lose something big in your life, you're going to go through a grieving process, but you have to be able to come through it. But people who've never come through the grieving process, they've done MRI scans and they're producing cocaine levels of dopamine. This is, any questions? Okay, so let me just finish my point there. As I went off on that study, it wasn't my study, I read it. What I see, one of the big dynamics is when men naturally start to give less because they don't have the dopamine that motivates them. The woman doesn't have the skills to motivate him. So you think men are going to stay motivated like they were in the beginning? No. Do you think women are going to be happy like they were in the beginning? In the beginning, with all the estrogen going in her body, you're waiting in line for 15 minutes for your table, and you don't mind that he didn't make reservations. But now you're married. It's like, didn't you make reservations? How did you forget to make reservations? What's wrong with you? We're sitting here waiting. Why are we getting the lousy table? Suddenly your mind has all these complaints. You don't have the free dopamine to build your estrogen, as opposed to having communication skills and behaviors that would keep your estrogen and testosterone levels up. So it's still not a problem if he forgets. Well, that's my husband. He's forgetful. And by the way, when it comes to forgetfulness, it's a major complaint women have. And I answer that by explaining biology. Hippocampus is where we remember things. A woman's hippocampus tends to be twice as big as a man's. So you say, why? Why does he forget so much? Because he's a man. He's not a narcissist. And we could say to women, why do you remember so much? That's our complaint. Why do men, Anyway, that was a point on that thing about narcissism and codependence. And somebody left the room and I think she didn't get the answer she wanted to hear, which is all these men are narcissists. No, they're not. They're just men that don't know how to relate to a woman because they didn't have a father successfully relating to a mother, and a mother didn't know how to successfully bring out the best in a man. Now, why don't we know this? Because culture used to be really intelligent. Culture said, men, you don't get sex unless you already prove to her that you can make money and you're a responsible guy and you'll provide for her what she needs. And you won't come home and complain. You won't hit a woman. You won't be violent with a woman. You'd be a wimp if you did that. That was our culture. The only time men were violent is when they were alcoholics. They were only alcoholics because they weren't getting paid at their job. If you're paid at your job and you're not a slave laborer, then you will make plenty of testosterone. And when a man makes plenty of testosterone, he does things for women. And when a woman could not make money and she could have what her dream was, my mother's dream, because if you're in touch with your female hormones, to a great extent, every woman wants to have babies. She doesn't know in her 20s. When the 30s come along, if she has a lot of female hormones, she will want babies. And there's always personality differences. But she doesn't, hormones control your thinking. Okay? Just have your period and you know that. Okay, hormones have a big effect. If you're not making female hormones, you don't have this part of you that says, I want a baby. I didn't want a baby. It wasn't until I made money. Once I started making money, I'd been a monk. I didn't want babies. Then I had a wife. But once I started making money, then I said, oh, I want to have babies. That was the prerequisite for me. What a woman needs is high estrogen levels, and her body will say, I want to make babies. But what we have is a whole society now where women have to go out and make money on their own, making testosterone, not making a lot of estrogen. So our culture did something brilliant, which we can learn from. We created a situation in places, it's not the whole planet. I mean, you have to realize slavery has always existed. Slavery, it was not just a black thing. It's always existed. There are white slaves, and then there's the serf system. That was also a way of controlling people. Men had less motivation, so there was violence there, because a man wants to provide for his offspring. There's just like this thing about your DNA moving on. And if you can't create a better life for your children, then you're not motivated. And the whole thing about having a king is they own your property, so your kids don't get your property. I mean, the best thing for me is I know I'm going to leave my children with something. So their life will be better than mine. Unfortunately, that's not a possibility these days. And that's unfortunate as well for men's testosterone. There's a lot of things hampering men's testosterone. It's so much lower. A 20-year-old has 20% lower testosterone on average than 20 years ago. Oh my God. And if you want to think about this, we hear about heart disease for men. I do want to talk about longevity. It's the number one killer of men. Heart disease occurs in men when their testosterone levels drop way down. Never will you have a heart attack if your testosterone levels are healthy. It's the one consistent thing. It's not cholesterol. Half the people with heart attacks, men with heart attacks, have high cholesterol, half have low. So and actually it's only oxidized cholesterol, which means your stress levels are high. If your stress levels are high, your testosterone is low. Men have 3 years to live after they stop working, according to insurance actuaries. When a man stops working and retires, he has 3 years before his first heart attack, even 2. That's what they know. It doesn't mean I have to keep working the same job. Like my life is so much easier now than it used to be, but I have to keep working. And I know even now with my new wife, she wants to start a whole new business, which means I have to learn a whole new thing. And a part of me goes, I don't want to do this. I want a easy life. And I went, no, John, it's good. You have a new challenge, not only is sex going to be better, but you're going to have more testosterone, but as long as you don't complain about it, take on a new journey, these are all little insights, but it's all in the box of what are the things I can do to keep my testosterone at a healthy level. It's just one way of looking at it. You could say, how about being a selfless person in life and knowing God supports you all the time? That's true. But even when I was in first grade, I had a knowing, a divine knowing, which was, it wasn't like I knew anything about God or anything, but I was so adorable as a little kid. I'm this tiny little kid. Okay, I've always been the smallest boy in class. Okay, so here I'm in first grade, and I had this Marine outfit. Imagine this little boy in purple outfit with brass buttons, big things on the sides, sergeant thing, and colors everywhere. And I got my hat, and I'm that tall. And I go to my kindergarten, my first grade class. I am so adorable. And I'm walking around like I am the general, okay? I've got my troops. And I have this traumatic experience of 5 school teachers, women, looking down on me, adoring me. He is so cute. He is so unbelievably cute. I can't believe it. And I still remember the reaction, because it was like, where is my army? How dare they? I came in knowing that I had an army of support. And like Oprah says, she knows that she acts like she doesn't have an army of support, but she knows she has an army of angels that help her. And it's true. We come in with support. The universe supports you, an army of angels to support you. So I came in being frustrated, where is that support? Where I'm very, very angry about it as a little kid. The other thing I knew, and as part of my message, was just to find your power in God. Because when you, as a man, when you know that if you do good things, this is part of what religion and spirituality teaches. If you treat others with respect and treat them well, the world will treat you that way. So, my wife says to me, you're just the most generous person in the world. You're so selfless. I can't imagine it. You're the best man in the world. That's nice to hear. And I say to her, but you think I'm so not selfish. I'm totally selfish guy. I know that if I do these things for you, you're going to want to have sex with me. So I want to be with a happy woman who has lots of estrogen, who loves having sex with me. That's a priority for my longevity. I just look at it, because remember, she cannot be here, I don't need sex. But I know how powerful it is for my longevity, for health and vitality. I'm a teenager, okay? So I had Parkinson's before I could barely walk 25 years ago. So, I know what sex can do for me. So, but in order to have a partner who can be in the mood, you have to have these biohacks. So here's another one, since you stuck around. Every day, now she doesn't have to put up the hand, but I teach couples to do this. A woman puts up her hand, she has to put up her hand at least once a day in the relationship where she puts up her hand, which means I'm going to make a request that you can fulfill, and it will not take more than 5 minutes, okay? Less than 5 minutes. And this is the commitment, and that's going to raise my estrogen. So once men understand this, she's now going to be able to ask him to do something. And the rules are, I'm going to ask you to do something that I could easily do myself, but I don't have to do it. You have to do it if you want me to be a happy woman. See, it's all have to. Men live in a world of have to. We do what we have to do. If we don't have to do it, we don't do it. So a woman who doesn't understand that says, oh, you're a narcissist, you're just selfish. No, we're designed to only do what we have to do. If I don't have to do it, why would you do it? It's a stupid thing to do. Yet women live in a world where the biggest source of stress for women is, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. I hear them talking. It's just like, oh, I have no time, I have no this, I have to do this, I have to do that. That's called feeling overwhelmed. And this is when I really saw how women were different from guys, at least back in the 90s when I was teaching a lot of this stuff, in the 80s. I never heard a man say, I feel so overwhelmed with everything I have to do, Now I hear it a bit because men are more on their female side. If you go to your female side, you'll take on the attributes of the woman, but in a very dysfunctional way. For example, if a woman is angry and you don't interrupt her, she can't stay angry. She just has to be able to express it, feeling safe. See, the most unsafe thing for a woman is to be angry. So if my wife can be angry and I don't get upset about it, then she feels safe. And if she feels safe, oxytocin is being produced in her body. When oxytocin is being produced in her body, now her estrogen levels will start to rise. Oxytocin is a precursor. When you feel safe, then you go, oh, I can depend on you. So if you can depend on me to share whatever you feel, and you're not a bad person for it, then very quickly your estrogen levels go up and your stress level goes down. And what was making you angry is no longer making you angry or neutral or not a big deal. That's one big mistake we men make. Another hack, never say to a woman, it's not a big deal. If you say it's not a big deal, you immediately are pushing down estrogen and instead of it going up. But what women can know, if you say to a man, it's not a big deal, his testosterone will go up. See, you would never think to do that. So the last thing you want me to say to you is, hey, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Okay? That's like, wait, I want to be heard. Now it's amplifying more. But for me as a man, if you say to me, like you want to complain, there's ways to complain. And I only covered that briefly. If somebody's stepping on your foot, you need to be able to say, hey, you stepped on my foot. Hey, you stepped on my foot again. That's complaining, right? I'm sharing some discontent with the intent to change you. That's complaining. Or I could just say, honey, yesterday you stepped on my foot. Would you try not to do that? A request. It's just a request. And try to do it without emotional charge. Like if you're in a restaurant, the difference between complaining and sharing is you have soup with a girlfriend and you say, oh, my soup's it's not hot enough. What's your soup like? Oh, this is terrible. This restaurant used to be so good. I can't believe it. You're sharing back and forth, right? And that's producing estrogen. It feels good to do. And then one of you is a bit more ballsy and you say, waiter, I'd like to speak to the manager. This soup is too cold. Now, what are you expecting? Him to go, oh, thanks for sharing. No, you want him to do something about it. You want a free dessert, you want a discount on your food, and you want him to change. That is complaining. Nothing wrong with complaining to anybody. You should always complain to everybody if you don't get what you want, just not to your husband. Your husband loves you. He actually wants to make you happy. And when he doesn't, it's his mistake. He just needs to be informed a few times. Now, the few times is also another thing where men will say women nag. Okay, that's when you complain again and again about the same thing. So the art of asking again, because men do tend to forget, and they forget more than you would. So you think, what? He doesn't love me? He doesn't care about me? He forgets so much. So when you ask again, you center yourself. You go, okay, he's forgotten. And my tendency is to point out to him that he's forgotten. Instead, I'm going to ask again as if it's the first time asking. It's a tone of voice. It's an attitude. And then he's more inclined to think, oh yeah, I said I would do that. And then he'll forget it again. Now you're really being tested. 2 times he's forgotten. And you're going to ask him again, honey, would you bring the milk home from school or from your job? Oh yeah, sure, I'll do it. And he forgets. Next day, oh, on your way home, honey, would you get some milk? First thing thought's going to have, she's going, oh, she's being so nice. She did ask me. I forgot. You don't need to tell him you forgot. This is the second time you forgot. He figures that out on his own. See, but he will figure it out with no defensiveness because he's not being, in his experience, being attacked, like something's wrong with him. I see everybody on the edge of your seat, but this is so good, isn't it? I know you have to go. Yeah, I know. You're so welcome. Good to see you. She's like on her seat. But this is so good. So the third time, then you ask the third time. You see, you're understanding this guy's limited in his ability to remember stuff if it's little stuff. That's why this 5-minute thing is really little stuff. And you're actually training him that when he does little stuff for you, because within 5 minutes, he gets a big reward, that you're happy. And you will be happy because it breaks. See, there's a pattern of women live in this world. Oh, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do that. And that negates estrogen. So you have to break the pattern. It's called pattern interrupt. Every day you get a pattern interrupt in your brain, which is something that you could do for yourself. You don't have to do. Because he's going to do it for you. And he's going to do it with a smile on his face. He's going to go, because this is part of the process. It's for 5 minutes, he's going to be the ultimate maitre d'. Oh, Dr. Gray, come on in. We got a seat for you. We got a free appetizer for you. So happy to see you again. That's the response. He's like a genie. Oh, like 3 wishes. I'll do whatever you want as long as it only takes 5 minutes. I could be exhausted and tired. And my wife puts her hand up. I go, okay, 5 minutes. I can muster up the energy for that. Can any men relate to that? A 5-minute request. You can raise your hand if you could relate to that. Yeah, making a commitment right here. 5 minutes. I said to guys, men are so logical. This is a woman, like you work your balls off to help her and whatever, and you won't give her 5 minutes every day to do some simple thing that you can do within 5 minutes. And I'll tell you who doesn't do this in my clients, the women. They won't do it. I mean, eventually they do, because every week they come to me and they pay me a lot of money. I said, did you do this? No, you didn't do that. But it's a barrier to women asking for help. And then there's a barrier to women asking for help for something they can do for themselves. They wouldn't even think of that. But that's what romance is. Romance is when men provide things for you that you could provide for yourself and you don't have to. Somebody's doing it for you. It's just built in. And that biology of women, which is probably one of the things most people could relate to in Men Are From Mars, regardless whether on their male or female side, was the idea that on Venus, every act of love has the same effect, big or small. Every act of love, which means I can bring her 50 roses, a surge of estrogen. I can bring her 1 rose, a surge of estrogen. It's the thought that counts. We've all heard that. You know, when I have 3 daughters, when I get Christmas presents for them all, I would wrap them myself. And so they wouldn't look as good as if I had somebody do it. And they're all like, you wrapped this yourself, Dad? Yeah, I wrapped it myself. A little thing. And then, oh, you wrote me a card? Yes, a little card. Okay, so I wrote the same card every time. You're my sweetheart. I love you always, to my wife, my kids. You're great. I'm so proud of you. You do the best. A little thing. But it's the note, it's the packaging, and it's the box. You can't just say, here's a new sweater. That's nothing to a woman. It's the box. So it's been wrapped, and there's ribbon on it. You see how women will put glitter on things and make a big mess everywhere? Just it's little things make a big difference if a woman is on her female side. Now, some of these women will not relate to little things, but as you start them, it will help her come back to her female side. Another very practical thing for women, you're not in a relationship, is I got a whole big thing on dating, but just getting regular massage, non-sexual massage is so important to raise your estrogen. It's just a super thing, and bring it up. And then read my books, which help to explain all the ways that you've sabotaged relationships in the past. Not for the young women in the room, but for the older women. We all been in relationships that didn't work out, and we're perplexed. Why didn't that work out? And so our big answer is, I married a narcissist. We'll just scapegoat over there. And men just go, I married a bee. Okay, and now I move on. Nobody has the knowledge to see what was missing in the relationship, and how every relationship is challenged today because we have a higher consciousness where women can easily go to their male side and men can easily go to their female side. We used to have all these restrictions, like you go to war, you don't masturbate, you don't get sex until you're married. All these things, the basic rules of being a man, and you work hard and you have to have a job and you don't get angry, suck it up, be a man. And now we've got all the liberals saying, oh, poor males, they're all narcissists because they didn't get to cry. Crying is narcissism. It's selfishness. Look at me. I'm so hurt. I'm so sad. That's okay. You're a woman. You need attention. You need empathy, because empathy will raise your estrogen levels. Then what you need is the knowledge of how to come back to your male side after getting what you need on your female side. So remember I said women are addicted to complaining. So I create, and as a therapist, for example, or for my wife, but my wife's a little different, but as a really accelerated transformation when somebody's paying you to give them advice. I hear a woman, I help her find the emotions associated with their complaints. It's very different than the way naturally do it. Rarely do women just naturally say, well, I'm afraid of this, and I'm angry about this, and I'm sad about this. They just talk about the story. My husband did this, he didn't do this, he should have done that. And they're pretty good at this one emotion. I feel so hurt. Anytime you say to a man, I feel hurt, his testosterone plummets. And anytime you're saying, I feel hurt, you're connecting with the most childlike part of you. Children feel hurt. Adults feel sad if they lose something, and adults feel disappointed if they don't get what they want. That's the adult part of the brain. But we've all been indoctrinated to be children by psychology. It's like every time something goes wrong, oh, I feel hurt. Yes, that's the childlike part of you. And it does happen a lot in marriage, at least in the beginning, because in marriage, you have all these sweet feelings. Oh, gooey, gooey, honey, baby, all this stuff, because you're activating the deepest level of love. I mean, when you get naked with somebody and you make love with them, you make love. So you're feeling more love than you've ever felt as an adult. So when did you feel that much love? When you were a little child. All children are just big bundles of love, unless it's disturbed, just pure bundles of love. So when you start falling in love, it's like you're falling back into your childhood. This is
You can keep going, we're just gonna grab that light.
okay. All right. Okay. We're having a fun time. We're online and you're still here, and my wife's out of town. Otherwise I would have been going a long time ago. So feeling, you can wander through if you need to. So when we have that high level of dopamine, high testosterone male, high estrogen, what happens? A woman has so much love, it awakens that love in a man. And it's women who awaken love in men. It's a mother who opens a boy's heart. And if your mother wasn't happy, he does grow up, his heart can't open up as much, but it will always be dependent upon being of service to a woman to open his heart to the highest level. I say that because I understand the genes of a male. So this is information, which is pretty common information in genetics, is that the big difference biologically between a male and a female is this gene, the Y chromosome. So it's like, why does he behave that way? The Y chromosome. Now, what the Y chromosome does is it's inactive when we first come into the world. A little baby boy and a little baby girl who will later be babies are just the same. All boys are little girls when we start out. We start out female. We have all the genes that women have, with the same. And then what happens after 3 to 4 weeks, the Y chromosome creates and activates in a man 23 genes that women don't have, and are just not active. Now, those 23 genes, their role is to override the other female genes, or many of the other female genes. So an example of that, when I read about that, then I go, oh, well, I'm expert on male, female. What would some of those things be? Well, biologically, it means the vagina flips around and becomes the penis. The penis is just an inverted vagina. If you move it out like that, it's a penis. So, you've got a lot of switching around that happens when those female genes get overridden. But psychologically, which is what I experience every day, well, women who become overwhelmed, okay, they don't have the brakes to say, if I can't solve that problem, I'm going to forget it. That's what men do. If they have enough testosterone, why worry about that? Nothing I can do about it. Forget it. Let it go. What do we do? This whole cave behavior I talk about. Men need to go to their caves to rebuild their testosterone. They rebuild their testosterone by forgetting the problems that they can't solve. See, at the end of the day, the sun sets. I can't do anything about it as a historical being. Now I've got the computer. It's all different. But the way we've evolved, at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do. So, and what allows men to feel good is doing, fixing, solving, achieving, doing stuff. Okay, so recently I heard a study that study on men being successful in the test that goes up, not successful goes down. Then there's another part of the study, which is when men chop wood, they get a much higher increase of testosterone than any of those other studies. There's something very primitive about chopping wood. You're physically, to me, it all makes sense. You're physically using your body. You're using your strength. And that always is going to pump your testosterone up. But every weightlifter knows, and that some don't know, if you overtrain, you become zero testosterone. This is another thing I have with weightlifters, which is muscle guys. It takes more testosterone to sustain those muscles. So I always wondered when I was just learning about Mars, Venus, I was studying, just trying to understand it all. This is back before the internet and everything. You buy these muscle magazines, and all the muscle magazines had libido pills. And these are like 25-year-old guys. Now, why does a 25-year-old guy need a libido pill? I was like, I wouldn't need a libido pill. It's nonsense. It's crazy. I'm just saying, hey, calm down all the time. I don't need something to help it out. Well, if you use up all to build those muscles, you use up. He's right there. But he's not overtraining. He's got some talent. But as an example, he's born with way more muscle mass than me. So you in your life, in order to manage stress effectively, you have to do more things to produce testosterone than less things. See, it's because you have to keep it up more. I remember, so I learned about this. One is the muscle magazines. Why do they have to take, pills? This is long before Viagra. There are other pills. Then I was in New Zealand, Australia, and this guy was like the trainer for the army there. And, he looked like Superman. I mean, he was amazingly beautiful male. And one time I was teaching a 4-day class, and he took off his shirt in the back, and everybody turned around. They just felt the energy of this guy taking off his shirt. It was pure beauty. He was a beautiful specimen. So his problem, why he came to me, is he couldn't keep it up with his girlfriend. How could this be? How could this be? I said, well, it could be that, because I had this other knowledge. I said, it could be you're overtraining. Go get your testosterone, test it. He said, oh, I got high testosterone. Look at these muscles. I said, just get it tested. He said it was 0.
Wow.
It was 0. But if he was to go online and do porn, that would produce so much dopamine. Porn produces tons of dopamine. Anything digital, your phone is producing dopamine all the time. And when you look at that phone, you're addicted to that. Look, okay, what are my messages? What do I have to do? That's all dopamine. It's just digital produces more dopamine than reality. If all I have is you as people, I don't make as much dopamine. As soon as we go online, we make more dopamine when we're talking on our phone even than a real relationship. Now, the whole thing with dopamine is that when something raises dopamine more than natural levels, then there's something called desensitizing dopamine receptors. So now, normal dopamine has a very little effect. I depend on a high effect. And then I depend on a higher effect. And then a higher, because each time dopamine goes, more stimulation, these receptor sites, the dopamine goes into them and they make you feel good. Well, if you have too much dopamine, they will balance out and close down more and close down more. Kind of like your eye, your pupils, if you go into the bright light, they will restrict. And then you go into the darkness, they will open up. So the remedy for the high dopamine of sex even is love. Otherwise you become addicted to sex. And if you're not addicted to sex, your body even gives you this prolactin that inhibits your dopamine levels from going so high. So that's what, fantasy, looking at some fantasies also produce high dopamine, which is like many sex therapists will say, oh, do fantasies, act out different things. Yes, it will raise your testosterone and you'll have attraction. And now you're more dependent on fantasy and reality has less effect on you. So with our kids who are on their digital thing all the time, they're addicted to that. That creates ADD, okay, where you're dependent upon high stimulation. Your teachers will be boring. So then they solve that by putting all the teaching on the screen. You give them more stimulation instead of what's the fix for it. Again, my nutritional product, this one, is one of the main ingredients in there is something called lithium orotate. Lithium is a brain chemical that they've made illegal all around the world because it will solve almost all your mood problems. It's illegal. It's not illegal to have because there's no proven side effect of it. There's something called lithium carbonate, which psychiatrists give with a prescription because it has toxic side effects because they prescribe 500 times the dose of what you need. Why they describe is because lithium carbonate doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. A German doctor discovered that if you bind lithium with a substance in mother's milk called orotic acid, thanks for helping out here. Thank you. Lifting some weights there. What happens if you bind the lithium, a mineral, to orotic acid, then that orotic acid, which is in mother's milk, will carry the lithium into your brain, and you only need a little bit. And we all need it, in my opinion, simply because if you eat sugar or you have exciting things happen or bad things happen, anything that actually causes your dopamine to go up or down will deplete lithium, because lithium's function is to balance the dopamine and serotonin. Serotonin's relax, excitement, it balances. So the cure for any addiction is you have this high stimulation, you have to avoid that stimulation over a period of time for the receptor sites to open up. But the problem is when the receptor sites are closed down, you have nothing to make you happy, so you long for that thing again, and that's the horrible side effects. You feel, terrible if you don't go back to your high stimulation. Love, what it does is love opens the flowers very efficiently. Okay, so this is what, when I had Parkinson's, it is inhibited dopamine function. Basically, you don't have that dopamine anymore. For me, it was 7 major concussions along with being a superstar for 10 years. You'll see lots of rock stars and everybody, they have all these mental problems later because they have so much stimulation. Wherever I went, everybody recognized me. I mean, when I was on TV all the time until I was kicked off, I was, we have the cancel culture. I was canceled in 2000. I was on every single show and then I wasn't allowed because I was considered sexist. As soon as you have human resources, big companies, death. Okay, it's the whole woke agenda started then, and I was kicked out, which is fine with me. I have my success, I have my validation. Now I don't have to work so hard, but I'm on computers every day doing my message. But I have to balance that. Even that, I have to balance with not having that stimulation to have the receptor sites come back up. What I found to be the best cure is love. Love produces serotonin. Also, oxytocin is going to help relax you. Serotonin gets produced. And now you've got a balance to that, to the receptor sites for dopamine will open up faster. But what I taught back then is important if you want to cure, if you want to cure Parkinson's, you want to cure, from my experience, to say cure, you're not allowed to say that. But for me personally, all my symptoms went away by getting amino acid therapy. Now, amino acids are the precursors to making dopamine and serotonin. So you want to be able to make sure once you're stressed, when you have any disease sickness, you're stressed, you want to be able to lower your stress levels. Lithium is proven to do that. What it does is it balances the dopamine and serotonin. That then helps it's the yin and yang of brain chemicals. The masculine side is dopamine. The feminine side is, oh, let's all relax. Everything's good. Let's enjoy each other. I have a little thing I did in one of my shows. I had a Broadway show, and this one of my favorite little jokes I would tell, which is true. I'm going to do it now. Men, because we have more muscle mass, what happens when you have more muscle mass is your muscles use up the amino acids necessary to make dopamine. It's phenylalanine and tryptophan. Your muscles, if you're using your muscles or using your mind, which is clenching your muscles, and men have more muscle mass, we will tend to run out of those amino acids more. So you get more men having Parkinson's and dementia than women. But basically, I'm using up my precursors to make dopamine. So men are working up throughout the day. At the end of the day, they've run out of dopamine. Okay, so they have no motivation. So they sit down on the couch. Women, on the other hand, without all that muscle mass, they have all the precursors for dopamine. So they come home from work and they're still at work. This and this and this motivation is still there. They're all motivated, because they have plenty of dopamine. Now, when they have plenty of dopamine, what also happens, remember I mentioned moderate stress, because being motivated and not have enough time creates a moderate stress. Moderate stress uses up serotonin. Serotonin in your brain gets used up in order to calm your brain. So women's brain is, with the estrogen and all that, is more active, and that's the overwhelm. Her brain is more active. That uses up her serotonin. So when she comes home from work, she's run out of serotonin from the stress of her day. By the way, the research shows that when a woman is in the workplace, her stress levels, on average, there's always exceptions, on average are twice as high as men's. And when she returns home, her stress levels are doubling. Now, of course, the feminists would blame this on men, which they did. But it turns out that when she comes home, whether she's married or not, her stress levels will still double. Because your biology is basically saying, I want to take care of my house and my environment, and beauty is important to me. And I'm working all day. Now it's the second shift. They're all talking, now I've worked here, now I'm working here. Her stress level goes up. So because of the high stress, she's run out of serotonin. So when she gets home, he basically has no more dopamine. And she says, there's a problem. He's going to say, he's got plenty of serotonin. He hasn't used it up. His stress levels aren't as high. So he says, no problem. We can do it tomorrow. Because he has no dopamine to do it now. That's dopamine, is do it now. And he's got plenty of serotonin, which is to basically say, mañana. So he's like sitting there. And he says to her, honey, just relax. Sit down. She can't relax because she's used up her serotonin. And she still has all this dopamine, which says emergency, emergency, emergency. And this is the plight of couples today. I wrote a whole book on that a long time ago.
You can keep talking, but we will have to stop the live stream because poor Manuel has been doing the live stream
Poor
since 10
Manuel.
o'clock.
Okay,
So
Manuel
everybody
needs
say
to use
thank you, Manuel.
Thank you, Manuel. So let me finish up with everybody here. If I'm talking the computer here for a second, and talk to you. If you're interested in learning more about lithium orotate and how to get it, and that there's no side effects at all, and if you're living in another country, it's legal for you to have it. You just can't buy it there. You can have a friend in America send it to you. Other companies produce lithium orotate. What I've done is have the lithium orotate with the magnesium orotate, the calcium orotate, and a whole bunch of things like ashwagandha, bacopa, other things that are known to lower your stress levels and balance the brain function. So that's my product that I had up here. I'll show these people here. And this, you can even use that little barcode, and you can order it, I think, at Amazon. But you want to have your friend in America buy it for you and then ship it to wherever you are. It's perfectly fine to ship, just can't carry it. You can't buy it in any stores. You can buy it online. The pharmaceutical industry has done everything to make it illegal. It's just that America, we have a big enough lobby because there's no side effect. If you take the doses that are recommended in the bottle, double them or triple them, you cannot have any side effect. If you were to take triple doses or 4 times dose, you'd have a minor side effect of dry mouth, and then you don't want to take it. You're just taking too much. So it's a powerful thing. I think there's YouTubes of me talking about this, but also at Amazon has the whole write-up. Also at my website, well, for all of you, you sign a little sheet which says if you want a coach on how to rebuild your amino acids, I recommend some various products to do that. It's just a big talk. I can't do that all now. But what I found to be the case for me is the amino acids are the precursors to making those brain chemicals. And quite often, if you're stressed, your digestion shuts down and you can't get it. So they're pre-digested proteins. It's like it's a protein shake, basically, with other ingredients, but no sugar. And if you want, you could take almost any protein drink and get extra benefit. If you got enzymes and you added the enzymes to your protein shake and let it sit for 30 minutes, it will digest it for you. So what you're getting is pre-digested proteins going into your brain. And that was a big discovery I made. It was tested out. It was normal proteins, you only get like 30% of the protein is digestible. But if you put enzymes with easy to digest proteins, like in protein shakes, particularly whey proteins, or now they have some non-whey because some people are allergic to whey, you can add the ones I recommend already have the enzymes in it, but you can add enzymes and let it sit and it'll bubble. It's like digesting for you. So then what you get is pre-digested proteins. In my experience, and when you combine the minerals with it, pre-digested proteins, little kids, all those crazy symptoms dramatically change. And for us as big kids, when we behave like little kids, it will also. Now taking the super minerals or the lithium orotate minerals, almost every woman notices the difference. If you're a man and you're like really nothing, no emotions at all, you won't notice much. But even then, the research shows that lithium will regenerate brain cells, put in a petri dish, and it actually grows brain cells. So this is like a super thing. As with other super things, they don't want you to know. I want to mention one other super thing that was discovered, and that is for brain function. I just watched another 60-minute special on people getting dementia. 1 out of 2 people, if they live beyond 80, 1 out of 2 will have dementia. It's not a really nice thing. We saw with our president the other night how horrible it is. And one of the things is the lithium, which helps regenerate your brain cells, but the other one is nicotine. And just like with lithium, they're going to outlaw nicotine. They're going to make it illegal. Nicotine itself is not addictive. It's been proven that there's like 200 substances in a cigarette designed to make you addicted to it. Nicotine itself is not addictive. And there's something to help people get rid of addiction, which is nicotine patches. And the latest research is just a little tiny patch of 3 milligrams of lithium a day will support dramatically over time, not having dementia, not having Alzheimer's. They're finding improved brain function as a result of nicotine. It's like everything they tell you shouldn't do, you should do. I mean, there's so much misinformation in this world. I just want you to know those nicotine patches are there. And there's a lot of research showing that, during the COVID time with the spike proteins, ivermectin finally came out showing that many countries are only doing ivermectin. That was it. Well, ivermectin binds with the same receptor sites that nicotine binds with, and nicotine is even more effective. And there was a study of 86,000 people who did not get COVID because they were smokers. And in America, they actually, in Europe, this is how the research learned, is because in Europe, they noticed that people were not dying from COVID or even going to the hospital who were smokers. Very small percent were smokers. And in America, they turned that around and said that, smokers are the most vulnerable, and they're not. Okay, so and now you see there's a whole concerted effort to make nicotine illegal. They say by 2030, there'll be nobody will ever allowed to have nicotine. Nicotine is one of the most powerful things for your brain. You can do YouTube searches on nicotine for dementia, nicotine for Alzheimer's. They're doing lots of studies, which I just noticed what an improvement with it as well. I had long COVID, and 8 days it was gone. And there's research saying it takes about 8 days. You do 3 milligrams for 6 milligrams. This is what other people say. I'm just reporting on that. I'm not your medical doctor giving you any advice, nor do I recommend you doing this. It's up to you to. You have to say this stuff, otherwise you get sued. If you just look at nicotine for COVID, you'll find it online. But it's 6 milligrams, 6 milligram patch. No, a 7 milligram patch. That's how they come in sizes. So 7 milligram patch for 6 days, and many people have many of their symptoms go away. For me, I just did it for 6 days, and then 2 days later, my chronic congestion in my nose went away in the middle of the night, so then I can breathe. It was amazing to me, and it had been going on since I had COVID. So that was my own experience. Not everybody, has that experience, just a lot of people do. So it's another thing to just know nicotine is good for you. Anything they tell you don't do, especially that.